had to change the title because Lance told me that the original title would have made no sense. I'll get back to that in a minute. So it says here on this piece of paper that the first point is as follows. You ask me, how do I feel now, me with my quiet upbringing? Well, ma'am, all I can say is if I were a bell, I'd be ringing. From the moment we kissed goodnight, da-da-da-da-da-da. If I were a bell, I'd go ding, dong, ding, dong, ding. I think it's quite clear that Sarah Vaughan ain't got nothing on me. So, yeah, the original title was, wait a minute, I better put these glasses on so I can see what the hell I'm doing here. That's part of the title. Yeah. Aha. Pimps and Wimps, or the rhetoric of JP, the pervasiveness of PC, the definitiveness of IAR and CKO, an essay dealing with the mediated minds of those concerned with babes in the media, by Tim Lyons, also known as YPC, your present correspondent. It also says here, dedicated for reasons some will find obvious to the memory of David Foster Wallace. We will return to the song, by the way, by a commodious vicus of recirculation, a phrase I stole from a hard-drinking Irish tenor named James. So I will start by reading, says here are my directions. I should start by reading the first paragraph. So I'm going to do that. I need to proceed quickly or Mike will kick me off the stage. I mean, first of all, actually, maybe I should I'll identify the acronyms as we go. First of all, why should your present correspondent care what JP, also known as Jordan Peterson, says or thinks about the beautifulness or lack of it of some Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, SISM, or other? Second, does JP, well-known podcaster, psychologist, and online quasi-guru figure from north of the 49th, qualify as a pundit in Matters-Pulchritudinous? That's the pimp of the title. Pundit in Matters-Pulchritudinous. And then it says here, third, what about the language in which JP offered his opinion or his judgment, or the language in which various humans and online persona have responded, sometimes with apparent rancor or acrimony, sometimes with what your present correspondent takes as self-righteousness, sometimes as what he takes as an assumption of authoritative judgment. So that's the first paragraph. By the way, this talk, I think, is the first talk ever given in which both Sports Illustrated swimsuit models and I.A. Richards both appear, as far as I know. Okay, so maybe we should, I should say this. I do not consider myself, or your present correspondent, which is me, does not consider himself a Jordan Peterson basher. The internet has plenty of those already, and they continue to bash away as they see fit. And I don't see myself as a dedicated follower of the fashion of following Jordan Peterson closely. I stole some of that line from Ray Davies. You all know who Ray Davies is? Thank you. I think that JP has done some things well. He's got young humans to pay attention to long form discussions. He's taken up some Jungian themes. You got to like that. He's encouraged humanoids to read Dostoevsky. That's a good thing. Not Melville. I don't know why he left out Melville. But anyway, he's aired some topics that seem like good topics to benefit. And I do wonder whether some of his detractors have ever listened to his arguments, just as I wonder if some of his admirers have ever read his books. I personally find his writing style rather turgid. Okay, so I thought we'd move on then to some of the things that Mr. Peterson actually said about YMN, an acronym that means Miss Yumi Nu, who is the Sports Illustrated swimsuit model in question, who, by the way, did not request that I know of Jordan Peterson's evaluation. Anyway, Mr. Peterson says she is not beautiful. Note the verb to be, if you will. He says, sorry, not beautiful, and no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. In response to his critics, he says, it's a conscious, progressive attempt to manipulate and retool the notion of beauty, reliant on the idiot philosophy that such preferences are learned and properly changed by those who know better. I love that kind of talk. And then some of the people who responded to him, also online, and note the way that people talk more than what they say. One person says, JP has always been a parody of an intellectual psychologist. Another, apparently aspiring to irony, says, he tells us that these authoritarians are forcing us to accept people as they are. What a hellscape. And another person says, let's be honest, she is beautiful, heavy set, but still beautiful. And my favorite, on the real, bros, if she dropped the extra pound, she'd be a 10. Okay, so that's the, you might say, the presenting problem. Now I have to go to my second page of notes. Mr. JP goes into this long thing about how the Miss Yumi Nu has been manipulated and so forth, and he doesn't like PC. PC, by the way, stands for doesn't stand for Paul Chambers. Somebody, you might know who Paul Chambers is. Anyway, and I also would like to note as an aside that your present correspondent is not upset. I'm not upset about the fact that JP has 5 million YouTube followers and I have 10. I'm not upset about that. This is not sour grapes. But anyway, let's proceed. So we're not really talking about Miss Yumi Nu in person. We're talking about photographs, therefore aesthetic objects, and therefore, by a felicitous segue, we move on to IAR and CKO, Mr. I.A. Richards and C.K. Ogden, who, conveniently enough, offered us their definitions of beauty. And in fact, their book contains a whole chapter on this, on beauty. And as soon as I find the page, I can tell you, this should tell me, page 7, I think. Yes. So these come from The Meaning of Meaning by Mr. Richards and Mr. Ogden. They have a whole series of definitions. I'm not going to give all of them. And by the way, this whole talk is a commodious vicus of recirculation back to where I began, if Mike doesn't kick me off the stage before I get there. But anyway, here's what Mr. Richards and Mr. Ogden say about beauty. And they're even Roman numeral. Number, 4. Anything is beautiful which results from the successful exploitation of a medium. Number 10. Anything is beautiful which causes pleasure. Number 11. Anything is beautiful which incites emotions. Anything is beautiful which promotes a specific emotion. It seems to me, by the way, since Mr. Peterson got all emotional in his response, that if we're to take Mr. Richards and Mr. Ogden as authorities in this matter, then Mr. Peterson must find the photo beautiful. What does that mean? Well, that's plenty of time. Plenty of time. I know what I have to do. I'll sing if I want. Yeah. You're taking up my time, Mike. Yeah. Anyway, so I didn't really find those definitions to be helpful in terms of evaluating the beauty or lack of it of these Sports Illustrated swimsuit models. So I came up with my own series of definitions, and notice that my definitions are all operational. Mr. Rappaport and Mr. Percy Bridgman would be proud of me, I think, in this area. And I did some research, of course. I gazed upon as many online photos of Sports Illustrated swimsuit models as I could get a hold of. I was gathering evidence, and I came up with these definitions, and we're coming back to the commodious vicus of recirculation, back to the song. So Mike should be pleased. Okay, my definitions actually contain a whole bunch of acronyms. So I don't know if I'll read them or not, but I should just note that years ago, before political correctness raised its unpleasant head, somebody named Timothy Leary, who I've heard did a lot of drugs, he came up with HIR for his or her. So I added to those. I have HIRO, his, her, or other, because I'm a very politically correct person. And he or she or other, he show. So those are my acronyms that are in my definition. So here are my series of definitions of beauty that I think they apply a lot more to Sports Illustrated swimsuit models than Mr. Richards and Mr. Ogden's did. Number one, the viewer gets overwhelmed with the so-called hots when he show gazes upon the photo. Two, the viewer finds the photo aesthetically pleasing upon which to gaze. The viewer wants to have sexual relations with the woman in the photograph. Notice these are all operations. The viewer has urge X when he, she, or other gazes upon the photo. The viewer would like to take the photographed woman out to coffee. When the viewer sees the photograph, he, show jumps about and starts splashing hero's dressing. That comes from the same song, actually, if you remember. We'll come back to number 7. Number 8, the viewer feels that if the photographed woman would lie with him, all of his emotional problems would dissolve into a heavenly sky. Number 9, when the viewer gazes upon the photo, hero's temperature rises, knees knock, hero has a definite physiological reaction, hero wants to change hero's party affiliation, and the one that means the most to me, this happens whenever I look at photos of Sports Illustrated swimsuit models. I want to clean my house at last. And finally, to go back to the beginning with my commodious vicus of recirculation, if the viewer were a duck, he show would quack. If he show were a watch, he show would be popping hero's springs. These come from the song, as you might know. If he show were a gate, he show would be swinging. And 1, 2, 1, 2, if I can remember the words again. You ask me, how do I feel? Me with my quiet upbringing. Well, ma'am, all I can say is if I were a bell, I'd be ringing. From the moment we kissed goodnight, da 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 da. Well, if I were a bell, I'd go ding, dong, ding, dong, ding. Thank you.